Tonight on the Your Life Matters Show podcast.
God forbid, I don't mean to be morbid, but, since we're talking about mental health and addiction and those things, I want to talk about the reality. I tell them all the time, and regardless of when this airs, this is true. I hate to acknowledge that, but as this show is airing, there is someone with substance use disorder that will pass away as a result of their substance use disorder.
That's correct.
The only difference between them and someone else that lives through the night may be one person reached out for help.
Behind every struggle, there's a story, and every story deserves to be heard. This is the Your Life Matters Show podcast. Your hosts are Steve Hodgson and licensed psychotherapist Dr. Eric L. Davis.
Tonight's episode is titled, From 488 Pounds to Freedom, The Battle That Saved My Life. What if you were told you might not be here in 5 years? What if your life was already slipping away and there was nothing left to try? At just 38 years old, our guest Brenda Langford was facing that reality. Weighing 488 pounds, trapped inside her own body, in constant pain, and afraid she might not wake up the next morning. She couldn't walk without struggle. She couldn't be present for her children. She couldn't live the life she longed for. And behind it all was something even heavier than the weight. Shame, fear, and the quiet belief that maybe it was already too late. But in her darkest moment, she made a decision. Not an easy one, not a quick fix, but a final chance. To fight, to live, to take her life back. What followed wasn't just weight loss. It was pain, discipline, setbacks, growth, a battle not just with her body, but with her mind. And step by step, pound by pound, she did the impossible. She didn't just lose 310 pounds, she found her life. This isn't just a story about weight. It's a story about survival, about resilience, about proving you are never too far gone to fight your way back. This is Brenda's story, and this is the Your Life Matters Show podcast. Here are your hosts.
Well, howdy, and welcome back to the Your Life Matters Show podcast. I'm your host, Steve Hodgson, and I'm here along with my co-host, the licensed, why did I do that, psychotherapist Dr. Eric L. Davis. Dr. Davis, hopefully we're going to have a really good show today.
Yeah, I hope so.
It's interesting because, it's a story about weight loss and life transformation.
Yeah.
But like you mentioned to me when we discussed it, it's a story about resilience.
Yeah.
And she's got a really, really good story, so it will be interesting when we talk to her. But before we begin, like we do each episode, we want to tell you about Way Post Counseling.
Mm-hmm.
See, so I think I asked you this last week, but ever wonder why we start this way? Right at the beginning. Yeah, I like to get it out of the way so it doesn't interrupt the rest of the show.
Yeah.
But, our sponsor each week, is here on the show because we tackle some important mental health issues. Think about that. We truly hope that if needed, someone may see themselves in those stories we present and discuss and might want a place to turn to for guidance and assistance.
Yeah.
Now, this is where Way Post Counseling fits in. See, you can do it from your computer, anywhere in the country, and begin the path to wellness right from the privacy of your own home. Think about it. You don't have to go anyplace. Nobody has to see you. You can sit right in your living room or even in your bedroom. Just have clothes on, please. And you can actually do a session with Dr. Davis, with Erin or Jeff, directly from your computer.
Yeah.
So please give them a listen.
January came and went. We are sure you made your list of New Year's resolutions. Then February was here, then March, then April. If you are being honest, they were not resolutions. They were wishes so you would become a better you. For many who are suffering with some type of mental health issue, whether it be anxiety, stress, PTSD, marital issues, female issues, anger management, depression, grief, self-esteem, loneliness, gambling addiction, or substance abuse, any of the other resolutions are going to be difficult to achieve if you first do not make a resolution to take care of yourself first. At Waypost Counseling, we have helped many people begin that new journey even when it seemed hopeless. Some think the only way out is suicide. We are here to tell you, there is help. There is no need to continue to struggle alone. It is time to reach out and ask for help. And we want you to know that is not a sign of weakness. Instead, it is a sign of strength, courage, and a willingness to face the challenges you are experiencing head on. Do it for those around you, your loved ones, but most importantly, do it for yourself. If you have a computer or laptop, you can get help from the privacy of your own home. There is no need to come to the office anymore. You can get help from anywhere in the United States. Pick up the phone and call Waypost Counseling today. Dial 317-762-0904 or 317-659-0179. You can also visit us on the web at waypostcounseling.com and request an appointment. Dr. Eric L. Davis, Aaron Davis, and Jeff Gazier are standing by to assist you. Hit the reset button on your life, your marriage, and help you feel once again that your life matters. You need to take that first step. Call Waypost Counseling right now. You will be glad you did.
So are you all ready? Because today's episode, this is going to be a powerful one. We're talking about transformation, but not just physical transformation. We're talking about what happens mentally, emotionally, when someone reaches a point where everything has to change or they may not survive.
This is something we see a lot in mental health. That moment where pain, fear, and reality all collide, and a person's faced with a decision. Do I stay where I'm at, or do I fight for something different?
So, our guest today, Brenda Langford, faced exactly that. She was told she might not live another 5 years. And what followed was not an easy fix. It was a long, difficult, emotional journey. And that's why her story is so important.
Because this isn't just about weight loss. This is about identity, self-worth, and learning how to rebuild your life from the inside out.
See, she lost over 300 pounds. Okay, I'll say that again. Like we said with the guy who got stabbed
Yeah,
so many times. She
absolutely.
lost over 300 pounds. Okay, but
Wow.
more importantly, and what this show is about today, she found her life again.
Yeah. I think what people are really going to connect with in this episode is the honesty, the struggle, the setbacks, and the reality that change, real change, is never easy.
So if you've ever felt stuck, overwhelmed, or like you're too far gone to turn things around, this episode is going to be for you. So, Dr. Davis, when someone reaches a point where their health or even their life is at risk, what's happening psychologically in that moment?
Really, what that tells me in that moment is that the person has basically decided that they don't have any worth, and that's a really scary place for anybody to be, because I see that in addictions a lot, where a person's in active addiction and they're well aware of the risks and all that, but I've had clients just say, I've told clients before in really extensive cases, it's like, I'm afraid that you might die. And sometimes they'll say, I don't care. So it really, it's a very weak psychological moment, that when people are vulnerable, sometimes it's just a very dire straits position to be in.
Yeah, I know myself when I was originally diagnosed, I was diagnosed, as you know, with IPF. And, that's a clock that's running on your life. Not that restricted lung disease is different, but it's not like you only have 5, 6 years to live type of thing.
Yeah.
It's a whole different thing. And but I know myself, it's like a switch went off in your brain because, when you told you only got like 5, 6 years left to live,
Yeah.
you start looking at life differently. You start all your thought pattern completely changes. Like I know myself now, I don't think about mortality anymore.
Yeah.
Okay, but when someone's sticking a sign right in your face with it, as what happened with Brenda, okay, that's a scary position to be in.
Yeah.
So, a lot of people know they need to make that change, like you said, but they don't. What is it that keeps people stuck, even when the consequences are serious?
I think a lot of it is just, human beings like comfort, obviously. And, sometimes like there's the old saying, the devil we don't know is better than the angel that we do, or something
Mhm.
like that, where, change of any kind can be very scary. Um, and I think that it's fear a lot of times, or just fear of things being different, even if they're not great. It's like, well, at least I know how they are. Now they may even be worse or something like that. So I think that keeps people stuck a lot.
I don't know. I think, I maybe can see that with weight, but if you're doing drugs, have some kind of addiction and it's killing you.
Yeah.
I just don't know. I can say I don't care
Yeah.
because that's
That's,
not about the addiction anymore. It's
yeah.
something else
Yeah.
that's going on at the same time.
Hmm.
But, when it comes to things like food, emotional eating, even addictive behaviors for that matter too, how often is the issue really about what's underneath rather than the behavior itself?
A lot of times, not always. I mean, like just as an example, a lot of times I'll hear, therapists talk about addictive disorders as a symptom of a deeper problem. And sometimes that's true, but someone
Mhm.
can just have an addictive disorder. You know what I
Right.
mean? Like
Mhm.
that's also possible. So it's not always just a symptom. But many times it can be. And so, yeah, sorry, I know that's kind of a
Well,
crappy answer, but
what I started thinking about was, I was even I try to relate things to myself so I understand things, but I
yeah.
think that's what everybody does. But, like I know I told my wife Jen a few years back, I was like, if I ever get big and I'm starting to eat like too
Hmm.
much, just slap me off the back of the head, okay? Wake me up because, you know, I may not realize it, I like food.
Yeah.
Okay. And I said this morning in the shower, not even going to bring up the fact that I've lost like almost 30 pounds. Okay. In the last couple of months, because talk about someone who lost over 300
Yeah.
today. But I know for myself that even last night we had ordered pizza from a local place, Italian place, and ordered cannolis.
Hmm.
So I found myself, I hadn't eaten most of the day, but all of a sudden I found myself, I ate like 3 slices of pizza and
Hmm.
I'd eaten a cannoli too. And after I ate the cannoli, I was like, wow. Okay. I mean, that's almost like 2 days worth of food for me.
Yeah.
So I know that, it's not for any other reason other than I like food.
Yeah.
And like you said, with addictive personalities, there are people that just like food.
Yeah. There are. And
Yeah.
the thing is too, it's a lot of times it's not that the person wants negative consequences. It's like like if someone's overeating or something like that, it's not that's not the reason. It's just much, think of like dieting or anything like that. It's much easier to be, well, I'll do it later.
Hmm.
And I think that's a big part of it also, where I remember I always think back to high school. I remember the biology teacher saying, organisms only change when the pain of changing becomes greater, or the pain of not changing becomes greater than the pain of changing. And I mean, I think that that's true. It's, we talk about like, we'll hit rock bottom or things like that. And that's really what can really elicit change. But I really do think I think that's part of the misconception. People think that individuals who are, in active substance use or active gambling addiction or that are overeating or whatever it is, it's kind of like people kind of look at that and they think, well, I mean, what did the person think was going to happen? And it's like you have to understand that addiction is a disorder and it affects the way that we think. And I can tell you, like I'm a person in recovery. When I think back to active addiction, I did not think like
Yeah.
I do today. You know what I mean? It just was not possible. And so, yeah, I'll just leave it at that.
I
I
think you
just
think during that time, but you're not thinking the way you're thinking today.
exactly. I didn't
Yeah.
think the same at all. Like
Right.
I really, I think way different than I did then.
hmm So how about shame and self-worth?
Mhm.
How does that play into someone feeling that they can't change?
So part of the way I understand, or part of the way I explain shame is like a lot of with my clients, I always talk about, I always challenge them. I say, take the word ashamed and move that to the side. Because if they heard ashamed growing up, that's what I heard. Like they should be ashamed of themselves, or you should be
hmm
ashamed for talking to your sister that way. But I break it down into only guilt and shame. Guilt is the feeling that I get when I am knowingly violating the golden rule. So I am knowingly doing something wrong. Shame is the feeling it feels like I'm doing something wrong, but I haven't necessarily. So um it's kind of like when I first developed a problem years ago, obviously I felt bad about it. But what I know now looking back is, well, I didn't ask for that problem.
hmm
That is, I didn't like, hey, can I have a cheeseburger and a side of addiction, please? Like never ordered it at a restaurant, never asked for it, but so it's like the way we say that is I didn't choose to have an addictive disorder,
Right.
but I can choose recovery. And I think that's the difference. There's shame around the condition itself, especially if we're talking about an addictive disorder, because no one asks for an addictive disorder. But once we find recovery, like if I'm working my recovery program and I'm doing everything I need to do to keep addiction at bay, um, then that I don't need to feel guilty, but what I'm saying is a lot of times people will carry around that shame surrounding their, diagnosis or whatever, basically like it's guilt. And like, it's like, um, I deal with a problem. I'm not a problem. You know what I mean?
Right.
So I, I don't know if that's helpful,
I
but
was just thinking of David's story that we did, I believe it was last week or the week before,
Mhm.
depending on when these shows are airing here, I don't remember. But where his daughter basically wanted him to race home,
Yeah.
and he couldn't race because he himself
Mhm.
also was
Yeah.
overweight, and he felt that shame
Yeah.
and disappointment. So, I know, I mean, I'm really careful not to do it, but we've all seen the person who's really, really overweight,
Yeah.
in the supermarket,
Mhm.
and just as like you're walking down the aisle and there is no passing on either
Yeah.
side, and you you try not to shame, but there are people there that will shame that person.
Yeah.
And I feel so bad for them because I don't think if they, like you say, were as being, someone drinks alcohol, is an alcoholic, you
Mhm.
don't choose to be an alcoholic.
No. No.
And I hope people understand that, before they shame someone that's overweight, they didn't choose to really
Right.
be that big. There's something else going on.
Mhm.
It could be medical or it could be mental,
Yeah.
with their mental health. So I hope
It's
people,
just that just speaks to the stigma, where
Mhm.
um people, I think it's really important that we just keep in mind we don't know what everybody's dealing with. You
Right.
know what I mean? We don't know, maybe there's a thyroid issue. Maybe, yeah, I
hmm
mean, who knows? But before you pass judgment on somebody, just remember that, that it may be something they cannot help. you
A
know,
lot of these medicines like Ozempic and the GLP-1 is now making people even more saying, why don't they just go
judgmental.
on Ozempic or something like that
Yeah.
and lose weight? There's more. If it's thyroid, that's not going to help you lose weight.
Yeah.
And, as we'll hear from the story today, sometimes that stuff doesn't work. Those, was it
Yeah.
GLP-1 medications? Sometimes those things don't work. You may
Mhm.
want to lose weight, but they really don't wait. So what's different about someone who finally says, enough is enough, I'm going to change my life?
Really the action behind what they do, I mean,
Hmm.
that really is, um, any type of a recovery program, whether it's, from weight, from substances, anything like that. Um, it's a program of action. It's like the real work, like we're doing work in here, obviously,
Right.
but
Hmm.
a lot of times, the way I tell clients, if I'm dealing with a disorder or a special set of circumstances, let's just say it that way, what works for other people may not work for me. So it's a matter of finding out what works and doing it. So that's really the biggest difference is, one person says, man, this drinking's really a problem, and they, feel bad about it and don't do anything. But, the real moments of change involve action where someone says, man, I really feel like this drinking's a problem. And then their thinking goes to, well, what can I do about this? And they start pursuing that path, and I always tell clients, I always say, God forbid, I don't mean to be morbid, but since we're talking about mental health and addiction and those things, I want to talk about the reality. I tell them all the time, and regardless of when this airs, this is true. I hate to acknowledge that, but as this show is airing, there is someone with substance use disorder that will pass away as a result of their substance use disorder.
That's correct.
The only difference between them and someone else that lives through the night may be one person reached out for help. I mean, and that's,
Right.
so it's just that action. It's kind of doing it in spite of the stigma, where it's like, you know what? I want to I need to get a handle on this. I don't care what anybody else thinks. I can't live like this anymore. That's where real change takes
Do you
place.
think a lot of people fear that day-to-day thing that's going to happen? See, we always focus on the outcome.
Yeah.
Okay. So if we look at Brenda, yay, she
Yep.
lost over 300 pounds.
Yeah.
Okay. But
But she,
let's back up a
like,
little bit. Okay.
yeah,
Because, however long it took her to lose that weight, that day-to-day struggle must have been tough. And the same
yeah,
thing with any kind of an addict. Yes, it'd be
yeah.
great to be clean and clear and stuff,
hmm
but what do they go through on a day-to-day struggle?
on a daily basis, it's really just a series of little tests, kind of, like, and some days are easier than others. Some days in recovery are much easier than others, and some are really hard.
Hmm.
It really just depends on the day. Um, but the devil's in the details. And what I mean by that, as far as like what's the person going to do day to day, like you're asking. So sometimes I'll do a substance use group and I'll have someone graduating. So it's, hey, you're graduating today. Congratulations, great job. Um, you know what? What's the plan? What's the plan moving forward? Like, well, I'm just not going to drink. All right, that's great. How are you going to do that? Well, I'm just not going to, no matter what. And it's like, and the thing is, it's like, well, how specifically? Like, and we look for things like, I'm going to go to 12 step meetings. I'm going to get a sponsor. I'm going to work steps. I'm going to, you know, um, do aftercare. Like on a daily basis. And I love, in the fellowships when someone celebrates like a clean time birthday, they'll always say, sometimes it'll be, someone will say, how'd you do it? And the answer is always one day at a time,
Hmm.
So, um, for me, I first entered recovery when I was really young. I was an adult, but I was not even 22 years old yet. And, that it was, it really is just making it through one day at a time, and so, um,
Well, I guess
those are the
part of that
things.
plan too is going to be how do you change how you see yourself?
by doing the work, and I hate to
Right.
say that it's by like the main thing is we need to make sure that we have a safe foundation that we're standing on before we start digging a bunch of stuff up.
Right.
So we need to make sure that we have coping skills in place, etc. But really just doing the work, and realizing that anyone can change, change is possible. And something I've always loved, my cousin Tom Carrico is his name, Dr. Tom Carrico. He's my cousin, and something he always said is he would always say, the only thing stopping you is you. And I mean, he said that when I was a little kid. He still says it today. But he's so right where, within reason, I can accomplish anything I really want to,
Right.
so, and so can anybody else. And the only thing ultimately that stops us is ourself, and it's
Right.
either our fear, our uncertainty. Um, so
Or lack of desire,
yeah,
to put in the work,
yeah.
because that's what it's about. So today we're going to talk to someone who lived through all of this, someone who didn't just face those challenges, but fought through them and completely transformed to life. So let's go over and meet Brenda Langford. Brenda Langford, thank you for taking the time out of your busy life to join us here this evening on our show. Now, Brenda, if you would, I'd really like you to take me back first to growing up. What was it like for you when you were growing up?
Well, I grew up in northern Canada in a really small town.
Hmm.
We were in an isolated town, so in the winter time, you're kind of stuck there because the roads were always so bad to go anywhere else. And I was a chubby child, and I was bullied a lot. And because I was stuck in this town, I was stuck with the same people all the time. So all my
Hmm.
bullies were always there all the time, and I couldn't escape it. And yeah, that's really kind of sad that that's what I remember the most about growing up, but it's true. That's what I remember. So
How do you, when you look back at that, a typical day, what did it look like for you physically and then probably even as importantly emotionally?
yeah, it's the emotional part that was always hard. I'm also an only child,
Hmm.
and my parents had me fairly young, so they kind of were living their own life, and I was just in the background. Like we never went on family holidays or family fun days, nothing like that. It was just always their lives, and I was dragged along. So I was a lonely child, I guess. I did have friends, it wasn't just being bullied all the time. I did have friends, which I'm very thankful for because I don't know if I would have made it out otherwise, to be honest. But yeah, a normal day, I'd go to school, get bullied. I did well in school. I was really like, I can tell now that I have ADHD because I always did really well, but then I talk too much. Like it was always, you talk too much. So,
I don't
but
have that
yeah.
problem though.
So, and then like high school, I guess was the worst because, that's when you get a bit more self-conscious and your self-esteem kind of goes down. And so, yeah, it was difficult. It wasn't easy.
We've said many times on this show when we talked about different conditions how cruel people can be
Yeah.
to other people, and sometimes they just don't even realize the words and their actions, and sometimes they don't even have to say anything.
Yeah.
Just the look they give people,
Oh,
is
I've had
just
many looks.
I'm sure, and I'm sure you've dealt through all of that. What was that pain like for you mentally? I mean, how did it impact who you were becoming emotionally?
Yeah, see, and it's funny because now that I can, reflect back on it, I can see that I was resilient back then, but I didn't feel like it. But
Hmm.
I would isolate myself to my bedroom, and I would just like listen to music. I would light candles and just kind of be by myself and realize, I guess I was realizing back then, like, yeah, I wasn't perfect. Like I thought I should have been, like everybody thought I should have been. But I guess like there was strength there. And at the time, like I said, I didn't realize that, but now I do. Yeah, it was hard. I was
And
quite isolated.
especially if your parents don't realize what you're going through, if they're,
Yeah, they had no idea.
yeah, they, and I'm not going to blame, especially back then, when we were looking back, a different generation. I don't think people paid as much attention as we do today to
Yeah.
something like that, as far as mental health. Heck, I was watching a Judge Judy where she was talking about how at 10 years old, her parents went away to the Catskills for the weekend and left her with her like 7-year-old brother.
Wow.
At home. They didn't do it in wrong wise, just didn't think anything of it.
Yeah.
Back then, that something could have happened. Um, so
Yeah, I had a lot of moments like that. Like my mom and dad, they were really into sports, especially my dad. And with winter sports, like for curling, for example,
mhm,
coming from Canada,
right.
um, my parents would go curling and we'd be in the curling rink, but where they would stay, like when they weren't actually on the ice, they'd be up in the, overnight, it's 19 legal drinking
Mhm.
age there. So over 19 club upstairs. So they'd be up there drinking with all their friends and leave me down by myself, and like they had no idea what I was doing or who was there with me or anything. And I just think, oh my gosh, I would never do that to my kids. But yeah.
So how did you move onward and obviously finish school? And how did you meet your husband?
We actually met online, but not through a dating thing. We were playing the same. It was called pogo.com, and it
Hmm.
just had a whole bunch of different games that you played. And one section was a bunch of free casino games. And we just happened to be in the same room at the same time this one day, playing roulette of all things. I don't know why I was playing roulette. And I had only just gotten the internet maybe 6 months before. So, it was all new to me back then. And yeah, we just started talking. So then we started meeting in there regularly and talking some more, and it just evolved from there.
So when did your weight really start to, I mean, was it, I mean, when you were a child, were you that big? Or did you, and to the people that listen, I know we talked about this before we went on the air. There is no disrespect that's being meant. There's just no other way
Yeah.
to ask it. When did you put on the additional weight?
Well, like I was a chubby child,
Hmm.
and I also have thick glasses and an inturned eye. So I was a perfect target for these bullies.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, so I was a chubbier child. I was probably, like 30 pounds more than the regular average child my age all through school. In high school, I thinned out a little bit. But then once high school was over, I actually had a bit of an issue there. I had a couple big rejections that really affected me. And I think that, along with suddenly being an adult, not having to like walk everywhere and do everything, and I had a car. So I think that combined with all that independence that I had, I guess, is when the weight really started coming on.
When did you realize that, you know, this was getting serious?
Well, when I was pregnant with my first son, I was 300 pounds. I
Mhm.
didn't realize that I was that big. Like all through this, I had a lot of denial, and I was 300 pounds. And when when I was pregnant with him, I was a high risk. They kept calling me high risk because I was that weight, and that's when I realized,
Right.
okay, this isn't good.
I was talking to Dr. Davis at the earlier part of the show, and I was telling him that, I realized myself, I mean, I'm, not big or stuff yet, and I've actually lost some weight too here.
Yes.
But I actually said to my wife years ago, I was like, if you ever see me, I enjoy food. I'm one of
Yeah.
those people that just enjoy food.
Yeah.
And I said, you ever see me starting to put on a lot of weight? I was like, you smacked me in the back of the head
Yeah.
because I'm not going, I can understand you really don't see it as you're
Yeah.
doing it.
Like
You're
I
talking
realized I
about,
was getting bigger. My clothes obviously were getting smaller and I had to buy
mhm.
bigger sizes, and I had mirrors, but I was in denial of how big I was.
But you know
Yeah.
what? We don't, I know myself when I was, and I'm nowhere near that, but I noticed as I was putting on more weight, okay, I need to buy a bigger belt.
Yeah.
Or I need to go to
Yeah.
3XL shirts instead of 2XLs. And you just
Yeah.
okay, well that's where I'm at. And you don't
Exactly. Instead of
realize it.
thinking, "Oh, that's not good. I should get into the
Mm.
smaller sizes again." Yeah.
So when would what take us back to the time when you were told you may not live another 5 years? Okay, what
All
went
right.
through
So,
your mind when that happened?
yeah. So my mom had died 2 years prior. And
Sorry.
well, I'll tell you the whole story. Okay. So the reason why I went to the doctor in the first place is because I was getting some flank pain on the right side. And I thought, well, this isn't right. Something's wrong in there. I need to get some scans done. And so I had some scans done. And the reason why I was getting pain was because my liver was severely enlarged and it was pressing on everything. So my doctor said to me, she said, look, if you continue on this trajectory, you're not going to live another 5 years. She said, your liver is severely infiltrated with fat and it's pressing on everything around it. Your spleen is enlarged, your heart is enlarged, and this isn't good. And that's when I just kind of went into like a bit of a numb shock, and I couldn't really hear the rest of what she said, but that was really scary. Yeah. And so the main part was that my liver was so bad. And that happened to be the week that my dad died from cirrhosis of the liver. So I was really scared. So 2 years prior, my mom died from cancer. And then my dad just died. And now here I am getting this diagnosis. And I was really terrified.
The only thing I say, if you catch it early enough with your liver
Yeah.
is good at, we talk about resilience. Okay, the liver is really good at healing itself over time.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
if you
a
take care
couple
of
of years ago, I asked my new GP, if my new doctor, if she would do another scan just so we could see. And it came out saying that the fatty liver has resolved. It didn't have
So
any fat in it.
congratulations. Yep.
Yeah. And it was proper size too. So, yeah.
So
And that's one of my favorite non-scale victories because like I made myself healthy again. So
so what happened? Did like fear take over at that moment
it
when
did.
she told you
But,
that?
I didn't really have too much time to think about myself, to be honest, because my dad had just died. And like I'm talking 2 days before. And I had to figure out how to get to Canada because I was living here in Australia. And then I had to deal with the whole like selling of the house and the probate of the house and everything and the contents of the house and the banking and everything because I'm an only child and that was my burden. So I had to get over there and I had to deal with all that. And it was very, very hard to think of my health. But I did try. Like I started eating healthier. I stopped eating such bad foods that I was eating. And I tried to look better, like look after myself a bit better.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's tough, I know, to do
Oh,
at the very beginning, to stop eating those foods you love.
yeah.
Mm.
Especially when I was in such a crisis mode mentally
Yeah,
because my
exactly.
parents
Yeah,
had just left.
it's not like, okay, I'm going to focus now, it's like my
Yeah.
focus is somewhere else. It's up. Now, I know that they tried giving you Ozempic for weight
Yeah.
loss,
So
and that
I
didn't
have
work.
tried, I have tried GLP-1s
Hmm.
twice now for very short periods of time. Um, the first time it did help. It like I lost 15 kilos
Right,
in like 3, 4 months. But I didn't want to be on it, because that's when everything started coming out about like how, it
right.
could be detrimental to your health. And so I decided just to get off of it. But the cravings came back really strong after getting off of it. And I've kind of gained that weight back. And then I tried it again and it didn't work at all. So yeah, GLPs are not for me. No, GLP-1s are not
See,
for me.
my doctor put me on the GLP-1 drug. It wasn't Ozempic. I'm drawing a blank on it. I could look it up here. But
Oh,
because I'm a diabetic,
oh yeah.
okay, and I was up to, it was 212 units a day of insulin,
Oh
which
wow.
I knew was too much.
That's
Okay,
a
but
lot.
that's what was the thing, leveling. And with it now, I mean, I take about 35 units a day of insulin
Right. Well,
with that, and it's worked. Yes, it's also helped me lose 15, 20 pounds on
yeah.
top of that, but it
Oh,
wasn't the reason it was given to me for. That's a nice side effect for me as
yes.
to that. But
Sorry, sometimes I forget that I'm in Australia, but yeah, it was like 35 pounds that I lost.
no, it's okay. I mean,
Almost
all
like
listeners will
kilograms.
get it. They'll understand
Uh,
that.
okay.
Because, and I really felt that that was an important question, because especially here in the States right now, those
Yeah.
GLP-1 drugs are pushed everywhere.
Yep. Same with here now too. Yep. And the
Mhm.
doctors, they just give it to you. They don't even like monitor your health or ask you about your health. They just give it to you because you asked for it.
Yeah.
So
I
yeah.
mean, I've seen, I watch a lot of YouTube, and that's like TV here instead. And almost like every fifth commercial
Yeah.
is someone talking about, you know, Ozempic or, any of these GLP-1 drugs.
Yeah.
And it's like, we're putting that, programming that into people's heads.
They're normalizing it.
Yeah.
And when I'm a big hockey fan because I'm a Canadian,
Well, yeah.
so I'm a big Montreal Canadiens fan. And I notice when I watch that along the boards, when they have all the
Oh, yeah.
advertising,
Hmm.
they have Ozempic, they have Wegovy, like they're all there on the boards when we're watching hockey. I just can't
It's
believe
one
it.
of those things that you look at famous people like Sharon Osbourne,
Yeah, Kelly
or even
Osbourne.
worse, a daughter.
Yeah,
Okay, who I think is taking it too far.
yeah.
But again, that I'm not commenting on that, folks. Don't write
No,
us about that. But I know that at one point that Sharon had said when she stopped because she realized she was losing too much weight, that the doctor told her it would be like 4 or 5 months before your system would readjust and you would start putting weight back on again.
right. Yeah,
And that,
scary.
people need to pay attention to that. And that's the only reason why I've pressed so much on the GLP-1 drugs, because even my wife and I were talking about that today as a nurse. She's like, we still don't know the side effects.
Yeah. Well, that's right. Yeah, like it's
Yeah.
still fairly new, so
Hmm.
yeah.
And it's Manjaro that I'm taking. It finally came back into my brain.
Ah, yes.
But, but again, I don't know what the long-term effects are of
Yeah.
Manjaro. I just know that it was developed for diabetes,
Yeah.
and it's working well for my diabetes, so I'm not complaining. It's got to be
Exactly.
better than 212 units of insulin every day.
Well, absolutely. And the
Yeah.
thing is, if you do the right things, you still like keep up with your protein, you still do the
Mhm.
strength training, things like that, then it's not as bad. But there's a lot of people who don't bother with that. So
Well, I
that's,
think everybody wants that immediate pill or
yeah,
that immediate fix that, okay, I can eat whatever I want and, just take this pill. It's
yeah,
like the people that just have sex whenever I want. Okay. Okay. Take that morning after pill and,
yeah,
don't have to worry about the consequences of it. So, you you made the decision at one point to have weight loss surgery, the bariatric surgery.
that's
What
right. Yeah, I
helped
had
you
the
take that
gastric
step?
sleeve. Sorry.
What helped you make that step?
Well, it had gotten to the point. So after I came back from Canada,
Hmm.
after, going through like selling the house and going through everything that I had to do with the estate, I it took me like I kind of started grieving then. And so it was a little bit hard. It took me a while and I gained some more weight even through the grieving process. And then one day my back started seizing up on me a little bit. And I thought, okay, this isn't good because I physically can't even exercise now. Like I always thought, I'm still young. I can go out there. I'll exercise. I'll eat well. I'll
Hmm.
get down, and I can do it myself. But it came to the point where I realized that I needed medical intervention. Like I needed help. I had to ask somebody for help. So
Yeah, and
I went to the first bariatric surgeon, and he freaked me out because I said, "When can I get this done?" And he said, "Oh, we can do it in 3 weeks." And because I had been watching my 600-pound life,
Mhm.
and on that show, everybody has to jump through hoops and like do like a big process before they're approved for surgery. And when he said 3 weeks, I thought, oh no, 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 that's too quick. I don't want to do that. No. So it scared me and it put me off for 2 years. And then I finally went to another one, which happened to be his colleague, funnily enough. But and then he was the right one for
You look at
me.
the papers. Well, wait a minute, you were supposed to get it like 3 weeks ago.
Yeah. So yeah, it took me 2 years to finally actually go and do it after that. Yeah.
Um, Let me ask you now, looking back, are you glad you did it?
Oh, absolutely. It saved my life. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And
And it's given
my
you,
bariatric surgeon, I see him all the time. Like I still visit him. I go into his office. I bring blood tests with me. I mean, he doesn't need to still be looking after me. It's been 7.5 years, but we have a good rapport, good relationship. So
well, it's good because, the more doctors that are involved in a case, one's going to see something the other one doesn't.
yeah, well, that's
That
true. Yeah.
that's what I like. I told you the story before we came on the air too. Why a second doctor looking at certain situation can
Yeah.
find so many things. So, first, I know the procedure and follow-up procedures were really expensive. Okay,
Yeah.
because you didn't. If I'm correct me if I'm wrong, but you didn't have the insurance really to pay for that.
Well, so I have private health insurance, and here in Australia, that only covers the hospital portion.
Mm-hmm.
So you still have to pay whatever the fees are that the surgeons and the anesthesiologists charge.
Mm-hmm.
So it still costs a bit of money. And so my weight loss surgery itself at the time was 6,000. I think he charges 9 or 10 now, but it was $6,000 back then. And subsequently after that, because I had a lot of loose skin after that, I had to go and get a lot of skin removal surgeries as well.
Right.
And that's what really broke the bank. That's very expensive. But I did want a surgeon who was really good at what he did as well. So I chose one that's not the cheapest either.
So how long after you got the surgery did you say, okay, I'm feeling well enough now. Now I need to start taking care of myself as far as not
Yeah.
only food, but as far as like working out, exercising.
So it took a little while. So I was 488 pounds when I had the surgery, or
Hmm.
just under that when I had the surgery. So, and my back was still seizing on me, so I still couldn't exercise for a while. And when I had lost about 40 or 50 kilograms, which is like 90 something
Right.
pounds,
Hmm.
almost 100 pounds I had to lose first before that back pain actually started going away, and before I started feeling, more agile and that I could do something. And what I decided to do, because I couldn't really go into a gym yet and I was a little bit self-conscious as well, I decided that I want to do something that's good on the joints. And so I went and did some aqua aerobics.
There you
And
go.
I was the youngest one in the pool because all the ladies in there were 80 plus. And here I was, 43 years old doing aqua aerobics. But it was great. Like, it was actually a really good workout and a good way to introduce me back into exercise again.
See, I know what that's like. I lived before we bought this house for 3 years in Florida here. I lived in a 55 and over community.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I mean, I'm only 67. My wife was 55. And it's like,
Yeah, they're all 80, aren't they?
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. It's like, what am I doing here? Okay, not yet. Okay, I'm not
Yeah.
ready for this yet here. Um, so let me ask you, what after the surgery, what was the hardest part? Was it mentally or physically?
The weight loss surgery.
Well, after the surgery.
Yeah, mentally, absolutely mentally.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's
What were you
hard.
going through?
It's hard to change your whole lifestyle. Like, I lived 40 years living that way, eating whatever I wanted to eat, doing whatever I wanted to do. And then suddenly I had to be accountable. And
Hmm.
my eyes were bigger than my mouth, my stomach, right? So I would still think that I could eat all this, but I sure couldn't. And it was hard. It was hard to also go to like protein rich foods rather than highly palatable foods that were like high in sugar, high in salt. And
Right.
so, yeah, everything was really hard. It was really hard.
But it's worth it in the long run.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you do get
I
used to it after a while. Yeah, you do.
because I tell people that all the time. It's like, so how are you controlling your diabetes? And it's like I have my diabetes under control. As much as I see a donut, police officer's son from New York. Okay,
You're
it's in
from
my
New
blood
York,
to eat
that's right.
donuts. Okay, but you know what? Like doctor tells me, you can eat one, just eat one. And it's
Yeah,
like no, because if I eat that one, I'm gonna want a second one. Okay, I
mhm,
know what my brain does, so I
that's
just don't
good.
eat any at all.
Yeah,
But it's how you look at, if you're looking at it from your health point of view that this
yeah,
is better for my health if I don't eat that.
exactly.
With
And I've
chips and all that stuff.
Yes. And I have moments where I slip a little bit and I have a little bit of regain, and then,
Mhm.
I get it back off again. And so it's a lifelong battle. I'm not perfect. It'll
Right.
never be perfect, but I do
But you
know
know
that
what?
I'll never get to 488 pounds again. So that's
Right.
good.
And you're healthy.
Yes,
That,
absolutely.
someone's definition of perfect is different for every person. To
Yeah,
me, perfect to anything is healthiness, as long as
that's
you're
right.
healthy and you look healthy. Okay, I just met
Thank
you
you.
about less than an hour ago. Okay, you look healthy. So,
That's great.
and I remember I saw the pictures. I got the pictures from before time. So, and I
Yeah.
think all listeners have probably seen it in the introductory film that we did here to the episode. And,
Mm.
you look fantastic from
Oh,
there. So I
thanks.
need to tell you that. Okay,
Well,
keep that in mind.
thank you. Well, at my lowest, I had lost 310 pounds. So, I mean, that's a big chunk of weight.
Hmm.
And I've gained about 50 of that back at the moment. I've also had a lot of injuries. So about almost 2 years ago now, I got a left groin injury, which prevented me from doing any cardio, really doing any walking anymore. And then my knee started being bad on the right side, and now I'm 8 weeks post total knee replacement at the moment. So it's been a rough 2 years, like for my lower body, not being able to exercise
Mhm.
as much, and it's gotten to me mentally a little bit. So I've gained a
It's
little bit, but
easy to
now I'm
fall.
ready.
It's easy to fall right out of it.
Well, it is, but
You
I'm
know.
ready now. Like I'm starting to feel a bit better and I'm ready to get it all off again. So I'm on a
Mhm.
mission now.
And you got to keep that mental frame of mind.
You
That
do.
you're doing it not because you have to, because you want to.
That's right.
That's really the most important part of it. A lot of people, they think about transformation is just motivation. But what did discipline and consistency really look like in your daily life?
Well, and that's the thing that I have been struggling with, in the past little bit because of my injuries and like things getting to me. But honestly, I do have a health and fitness coach, and he does give me a meal plan and he gives me a training plan. And for the most part, I'm pretty good with the training plan. It's the meal plan that I haven't been so great with, but I am back on track now, thank goodness. But you really have to track everything to be successful at this. You have to track everything, and that's when I had lost the 310 pounds. That's what I was doing back then as well, and that's what made me successful. So I know that that's what works for me.
I just to me my biggest secret is when I go to the supermarket, just make sure I don't buy any of that stuff.
Yeah. Actually, I make my husband do all the shopping because I just don't want to go in there in the first place.
You see, I go in just I see the stuff there, but I so what you're walking by, you see a bag of pretzels, you want to grab that bag of chips and stuff, and I just don't because I know if I feel like I want that,
Yeah.
it's not here in the house.
Yeah,
And
exactly. Yeah.
I'm not going to
I'm
get
learning. Yeah.
yeah, I'm not one of those people that's going to get dressed and go drive down to the store to go get it either. It's just like,
Yeah.
okay, well,
Well, that's
We'll
good.
have some cucumbers, okay?
When I've had cravings, I've done that. I've gone in the car and gone to the store, but I'm not doing that anymore.
No,
So,
I just won't even do. And now with DoorDash, it makes it even scarier. All these
yes.
coupons and all these people that deliver, it just makes it even worse.
And I've
Um,
been laid up in bed with my knee replacement. So I did get DoorDash a couple of times, and I've actually uninstalled the app on my phone because I'm not doing that anymore.
what I don't know what it's like in Australia, but I know here you take a $15 pizza. By the time DoorDash is done with it, it's $23
Yeah, same
for that
here. Yep.
$15 pizza. And that's enough in my head, just no.
Yeah, it's expensive. That's
Yeah, I
right.
mean, I'd rather get up. I mean, let's say Pizza Hut, it's only 5 minutes from here. I'd rather drive the 5 minutes and go pick it up instead of giving
Yeah.
$8 away. That's half of another pie.
Well,
So,
exactly. Or something that can go in your bank.
yeah,
Yes.
exactly. So now, were there moments that you felt like giving up?
Oh, yeah. I mean, not in the last couple of years, the
Mhm.
last 5 years, never. But at the beginning, absolutely. Like I
What
thought, what am
helped
I
you get
doing?
through those moments?
I guess just the thought of actually living a life that I want to live. Being my best self, being healthy, being able to go for walks. I mean, obviously at the moment, I can't do that, but
Well, yeah.
I live on the Sunshine Coast in Australia, which is a lot like Florida, like living like well,
Hmm.
I won't say Miami, that's a bit more exciting, but we have beautiful beaches here and the weather's great, and I haven't been able to enjoy that, and that's what I really like. I want to live the lifestyle that is here, and so yeah, that keeps me going.
What about your child?
Sorry.
What about your child? Don't you want to be there for him or her?
Yeah, well, I've got two. Yep.
Two. Okay, I was going to say I had to watch myself because I was about to say children, and I was like, okay, now at this hour of the night, am I correct? Okay, is it one or two? You
Yes,
mentioned
I've got
one, so I
two.
figured it's safe to say one. Okay.
And they are older. So, like, my eldest one just turned 28. I can't believe that. And my
Wow.
youngest one is 20. So, I don't even have teenagers anymore. And I have a bit of mom guilt because, I was really big when they were little. And I could see their friends making fun of their mom, so I have a lot of mom guilt from that. I have a lot of wife guilt from being a big wife. But yeah, I mean, they are proud of me and they do see that I'm healthier now and they do try themselves too, which is good.
Plus, you want to be around for your grandchildren. You're going to have grandchildren. You want to be there for your
Well,
grandchildren.
well,
Yeah.
that's right. I'm a little
Yeah.
scared of that, but I guess that's exciting. Yes.
Listen, I got 4 of them. Okay. They're
Yeah.
fantastic. Okay. And one of them is actually turning 16. So
Oh,
it's
well.
like, wow, But yeah, I'm thinking I want to be around for my great grandchildren
Yeah.
at that
Wouldn't that
point
be
too.
good?
So, yep.
Yeah.
Um, I know you lost over 300 pounds, but beyond the weight, what changed the most in how you see yourself?
I had given up on myself. Like I didn't see myself as being worthy. I didn't see my life as being worthy. And now I realize, like, oh my God, I do have a life. I am worthy of living this life. And that is the biggest change that I've had in this whole process is actually like rediscovering myself and realizing that, I do deserve this.
And I know you've said the scale doesn't define your worth.
That's right.
When did that
It's just a
mindset
machine that we
happen for
step
you?
on with a stupid number on it.
Yeah, exactly. When did that sink in and start to work? Was it after the surgery or?
Oh, yeah. I mean, when you first have the surgery, you are addicted to that scale because you love seeing the weight come off. Like I
Mhm.
was losing, 5 to 10 pounds like every week or two. It was
Mhm.
crazy. Like I lost so much in that first year. In that first year, I lost about 160, 170 pounds in
Wow.
1 year. So, you're always on the scale. You're checking it almost every day. It's ridiculous. So it took a while to step back from that. And even now, I still focus on the number a little bit, but what I like this 20 kilos that I keep saying. So 44 pounds that I want to get off now. Like
Mhm.
it's not the number itself. It's just I know that I felt really good when I was that size. And
Right.
so to get back to that
I want to
size
get
is
back to
44
that. Right,
pounds.
exactly.
Yeah. So
So,
it's not really the number, it's just how I felt when I was there. Yeah.
mhm. What was the moment you realized that when you said to yourself, I have my life back?
Uh, I don't know if I can actually think of a moment. I really don't. I think it was more of a gradual thing, but I guess when I did realize it, that's when I thought I need to write a book about this.
Mhm.
I need to tell other people that there's a light at the end of the tunnel, that like you can have this feeling. And that's what I told my plastic surgeon once. I said, like this feeling, I want to share it. Like I don't want to keep it all to myself because it feels so good. And
And in
yeah.
fact, right after the lightning round here, we're going to go into the book. That's my
Okay.
next question's on here. But it is that time again for the show here, and it's the
It's the lightning round.
Yes, it's the lightning round. All right, Brenda, we're going to shift gears for a moment. This is our lightning round. Just a few quick questions. First thing that comes to your mind, quick answers. And I already
Okay.
discussed this with her before time, so she at least knows what's coming here. I think the
Oh.
first time we ever did this, we didn't tell the person, and the person sat there with this look like, "Oh my God, what are they about to do to us?"
Well, it is a little scary, but I'll
Yes,
I'll try.
okay, but they're easy stuff. So, okay,
Okay.
the first one. There's actually 10 questions. First question. One word that describe how you feel today compared to your lowest point.
Uh Free.
There you go. What kept you going on your hardest days?
Hope.
Number 3, what was the biggest mindset shift when it came to food?
Oh gosh. I don't even know an answer for that.
I
Not
was
one word
thinking,
anyway.
I was thinking health.
Yeah.
Really
Just
would,
longevity.
yeah,
Yeah.
right, exactly. Your longevity and health. Okay, number 4, what's the one thing people misunderstand about weight loss journeys?
They don't realize how hard it is. They think it's easy because we cheat by taking either surgery or whatever. Yeah.
hmm Yeah, yeah, and I have people that I know that had the surgery and didn't stick with any kind of program and put a lot of that weight right back on again.
Yeah. Well, you really have to work at it.
Yeah, they just think, well, I did this, now I'm fine. No, if you don't stop eating and change the way you act and everything else too, it will come right back. Okay,
That's
number
right.
5, a daily habit that changed your life.
Exercise.
Yep. Number 6, what are you most proud of that has nothing to do with weight?
Oh, I guess just health.
Mm-hmm.
Being healthy again.
And I think it's a better frame of mind. You seem to be in a really good frame of mind.
Yeah. I mean, I
You're
have my slip ups, but for the most part, absolutely. Yeah.
but you're not, it's funny when you told me your story earlier about, when you were the only child and everything, you were looking down a long tunnel. And
Yeah,
I think you're out the other side of that tunnel
I
because what
agree.
you're saying now is completely different from your tone that you had then of what you were looking at. So I think that's great. Number 7, something simple today that once felt impossible.
Oh, exercise.
Word comes up a lot,
Absolutely.
okay? Number 8, a
Oh,
moment where you thought, I made it.
oh, oh gosh. I guess when I wrote my book.
And that's number 9. What does your book, Weight Loss Saved My Life, mean to you in one sentence?
It means that I went from darkness into the light. There really is a light at the end of the tunnel,
There you go.
and I got there.
Okay, and number 10, and then we'll go into the book. Number 10, freedom to you means what?
Being able to move, being able to just do whatever I want to do and not be restricted by my size and my weight.
Hmm. So we've been lightly parading around the book. Okay, weight loss saved my life. Okay, you started going, there you go. Okay, you started going into it. What what made you write the book? I know you started talking about it earlier, and I tried to shift away so we could save it for this.
Well, as I was going through my journey, I had quite a few people tell me, like, you've done amazingly. You really should write a book about this to inspire other people. And so that's what, planted the seed. And as I kept going, I thought, you know what, maybe there is a story here because I really want to show people. Because when I was 488 pounds, I felt like I was stuck. I felt like there was no hope. I felt helpless. And I think people don't realize that you really can change your life around. You really can transform yourself. And I guess that's why I really wanted to write the book, is to show people that it's possible.
Right. And as we said, on this show so many times when Dr. Davis is here with us, resilience is so important. And as I said to you even before we came on the air with this, that I think people relate more when they read a story like yours and they hear
Yeah,
a story like yours, say, well, you know what? If she did that, I can do that,
exactly. That's exactly why.
and
Yep.
and I will have 1,000 people on the show. I'll do 1,000 episodes on people that have turned their lives around, whether it be from addiction, whatever it is, but is now on a much better path to mental health because this completely has changed your mental health.
Absolutely.
I
Oh,
mean, you
and
look at life so differently.
absolutely. And one thing that I was really surprised about from writing this book is that it's helped me heal even more from
Hmm.
my childhood trauma, because I guess it's like journaling, like I got it all out.
Yep.
That surprised me. So I wasn't expecting that.
And you know what? In all of the book, people who read it may not see themselves in everything, but there are parts of it that they're going to see themselves. Okay,
Yeah,
when you hear
absolutely.
stories like even mine, which is, uh, isn't even really a weight loss story, but I hear so much in the things that you've said that, yeah, I know where my mind goes every once in a while, especially when it came to food. Okay, I understood that, and even with exercise and stuff, how when we were talking, sometimes don't want to, and you use that excuse, like you say, have a problem with your knee, you had the surgery and stuff. I do that with my lower back. My wife
Yeah.
was in the room right now. She would tell me the same thing. She goes, "Yeah, use his back as an excuse."
No,
And yeah, every once in a while I realized, you know what, I was using my back as an excuse,
I
you
mean,
know,
it is hard to exercise when you have chronic pain too. So, I mean, you
Mhm.
have to think about that as well. It is a reason more than an excuse, but yes, you can kind of push through it, can't you?
Right. And there's a lot of people that just need to realize, like you said, when I asked you what people misunderstand about the weight loss journey, it's not easy.
It's not easy.
No, but the reward is worth every second of it.
Absolutely. It is
Yeah.
the most difficult thing I've ever had to do in my life, but it's the
Mhm.
most rewarding thing that's ever happened to me. So
And you've well past, like you said, you've been, how many years ago was the surgery? 7, 8 years
seven
ago?
and a half years now.
7.5 years ago, right? So you passed that 5 years.
Yeah.
Once you said
Yeah.
you were going to make it that 5 years, that's
That's
what
right.
makes it all really worthwhile.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
That doctor told me 10 years ago that I wouldn't make it 5 years. So here I am,
have you
twice as
seen that
long.
doctor since?
No, but I had my book launch last week and I did
Mhm.
contact her to try to get her to come, but she didn't show up. But she did say to me that she remembers me and she's so proud of me and she's so happy for me. So that was nice.
Mhm. So where can people get the book if they wanted to get the book?
So at the moment it's only on my website, so brendalangford.com,
Okay.
but it will be on Amazon and everything else in about 6 weeks.
Okay. And to the people that are listening, the links will be in the description that's here. So if you didn't catch what she said there, just look at the description of the video. And Brenda, I'll have you let me know when it's on Amazon so
Yeah, I
that
will,
I'll also
absolutely.
add
And
the Amazon link
okay,
to
that'd be
this as
great.
well too afterwards. So it's good. Now I got one final question, I believe, for you.
Okay.
And I asked a lot of people this. Actually, there's two of them. So I want to ask the first one first. Okay.
Okay.
If someone's listening right now that's stuck, overwhelmed, or feels like it's too late, what would you say to them?
Well, it's definitely not too late. I started this at age 42. So it's not too late for you. But what people need to realize is sometimes you have to ask for help. I know it's not easy to ask for help because you feel ashamed or you're embarrassed, but ask somebody for help, whether it be like a bariatric GP or a bariatric surgeon or just somebody that can, even just a health and fitness coach, somebody that can get you started. But
Hmm.
yeah, that's really important. You can't do this on your own, especially when you are feeling so desperate. You can't do it by yourself.
On this show, we always say asking for help is not a sign of weakness.
Yeah,
It's a sign of power. It's a sign
absolutely.
of you saying, you know what? I can't do it alone. I want to change this. I need help to do it.
Yep,
And that's how you have to look at it. Not that it's a weakness. Oh, I got to ask somebody for help now. No, it's time to start to change and something really
that's
good.
right. Like
So
this is
here's
your
the
life, this is your health. You have to do
exactly,
it.
and
Yeah,
like we say on the show, your life matters.
yeah,
As it says right
exactly.
behind me back here. Okay.
That's
Um,
right.
so here's my final question. Okay, for you, if you could go
Yep.
back and speak to yourself at your lowest point,
Mm.
what would you tell
Ugh. I wish that, yeah, that's hard. I wish I could tell her that like even though she is feeling that bad, her life is worth it
her?
because I really didn't think it was. Oh, you're gonna make me cry.
That's okay.
Yeah,
I,
but you're worth it and you need to help yourself.
all I can say is I could apologize on your parents aren't here anymore and stuff, but I'm sorry you had to go through that.
Yeah.
With you know, being an only child is a tough thing in itself. I mean, I joke. I was just saying, I do. I unfortunately I did have a brother. And he's still with me. Okay, but I did. I had friends that had no one. Okay, they were just themselves, and like you said, their parents back in that generation, even back in my generation, they didn't realize mental health effects on children,
Yeah.
and it already started you down a vicious circle, a cycle that maybe you could have come out of a lot earlier
Yeah.
if you weren't in that. So again, I will so go over and over this that it's not a sign of weakness. Speak to someone, even if you're at school age. Talk to one of the
Yeah.
counselors.
Exactly. Like I wish I would have done that back then. Absolutely. It
Yeah.
probably would have put me on a better path, but
Because I know today when you go to a doctor, I always joke with my doctor. It's like, do I look like I'm getting ready to commit suicide or something? Come on. Okay. I mean, these questions. Do you feel depressed? Okay. Do you feel, they all
yeah.
do that. The nurses and doctors have to go through these lists of questions now. I guess the federal questions that they have to ask here in the States.
Yeah.
And it's like, maybe if we had some of those questions back then,
Yeah, exactly. We
you
sure
know,
didn't. No.
I mean, my doctor back then was like, "What the heck do you want? Okay, I got a cold. What do you need?" Okay, they'd write you a script for it, and or give you a shot, and and you're out the door. So,
That's right.
I want to thank you for sharing this incredibly powerful and inspiring story.
That's all
Was
right. Can I actually add a couple of things before we
Yes,
go?
please do. You please do.
If anyone wants to follow me on Instagram, my personal journey is the incredible shrinking Brenda.
And that's on
And
the
I'm
lakes
also
too, I know.
and I've also started a diploma in weight management. So what I want to do is become a weight management coach or a weight management consultant so I can help people
Mhm.
all around the world. So hopefully I'll be qualified as of early next year and I can help people everywhere.
Well, when you are, again, let me know so I can
Okay,
update the description on this as well. And we'll
will
even
do.
mention it on our website and stuff too. Your journey is, it's amazing. From, as I said, looking into the tunnel, but then
Yeah.
coming out of that tunnel. And there's so much light, like you said, coming into the light. There's so much light at the end of that tunnel.
Oh,
And, it's fantastic. And I really hope, you know what, I even reach out to her. You know, I know you're on Facebook as well, too, if I'm not mistaken, right?
yeah. I just have
Yeah.
a personal account there, but
Right.
yeah, I
But
do
I
have an
mean,
author page.
reach out and, if you got a question for Brenda, ask her. I'm sure you'll be willing to talk to anyone that's
Absolutely.
got a question and stuff because a lot of times people, before they take that first step seeking professional help, they want to talk to somebody else who's walked the walk, as they say,
Yeah,
and I'm
exactly.
sure you'll be more than willing to help them with that walk.
Absolutely.
So, yeah. So, thank you for joining us tonight, and we wish you continued luck and success.
Thank you very much. Thanks so much for having me.
So she has an amazing story. But Dr. Davis, after hearing Brenda's story, from where she was to where she is now, what stands out to you the most from a mental health perspective?
Honestly, I think that, like we were talking about earlier, the resilience where, I'm sure every single day didn't get easier,
Hmm.
and, but she stuck with what she was trying to do, basically didn't take no for an answer from herself
Right.
and was like, this is what we're doing. And, it's amazing how far she's come. So the thing is, I hope people look to her as an example of, like people can accomplish things you would never in a million years think they can. Like people
Right.
can accomplish just about anything. And none of us is any different, So I hope people take that away that if you're struggling or if you're looking to change your life, you can. And there are people out there that want to help you do that, that want to support you and love you through it and all that.
And just understand too that you're not cured.
Yeah,
Okay, you're still going to be dealing with some of the issues, but you're going to feel so much better about yourself. And
absolutely.
that makes dealing with the rest of it that much easier.
Yeah.
It's like someone who stopped smoking. Yeah, it gets so much easier. But every once in a while, or
Yeah.
an
You're going to
alcoholic,
have
every
a
once in a
craving
while you're gonna take that
yeah.
drink. And but it's so much easier to deal with at that point. So
Yeah.
the last question I have for someone who's watching or even listening right now, who feels stuck, overwhelmed, feels like life's gone too far out of their reach. What's the first step they can take mentally to start turning things around?
To start, I think so mentally to start looking at what they want to change. And I think that, the one of the most important parts of change, obviously, is the details, like I was saying. So
Mhm.
it's not just, I want to lose weight. Well, how much do you want to lose? How are you going to lose it? Like really start to think about action steps that you can take. And what I tell clients every day, I think I've probably said this every day in my career. I always tell them, you know, even a baby step toward what you are wanting to accomplish is wonderful. And I mean, even like, guru positive psychology celebrities that I've listened to in my life, like Tony Robbins. I mean,
Right.
they say the same thing. It's like, anything you can do to move toward that is great. Like if you can't take massive action. If you can, change everything right now if you can. But if you can't, do what you can. If you
And I
if
guess one
someone
of the
wants to
steps
start
too,
working
but
out and can do one pull up, awesome.
mhm.
Shoot for two in a couple days.
But I guess one of the first things that at least I'm thinking of is that they have to admit they have a problem.
Boy, absolutely, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, because there's a lot of overweight people that just so what?
Hmm. Yeah.
And I know a couple of them. So what? Well, so what? So it's bad for your health.
Hmm.
It's bad for your heart. It's bad
Yeah.
for your diabetes. We can go down the medical list, okay, itself, and you know, like like Dave would say, so what? He couldn't play with his daughter
Yeah.
that time, so what? You know, so what? You're getting drunk every night,
Hmm.
and you're self-medicating again in Dave's case.
Yeah.
So, yeah, there's a lot of things that people need to, like you say, but each step, like you say, even those little small
Hmm.
steps.
Yeah.
I know I myself, I'm one that hate working out. Okay.
Yeah.
Hated with a passion. Okay. But when I get back into it, as I start to do it, I don't sit there and say, okay, I got to do 50 squats.
Yeah.
I do 10,
Yeah.
just 10 every day, and then, maybe second or third week, maybe I'm going 15 or 20
Hmm.
and slowly start to build it
Yeah.
up instead of saying I got to go back to doing like 50 squats a day, because
Yeah.
it's unrealistic for you. Even a weight post commercial
Yeah.
that runs, talks about your New Year's resolution, that you're going to
Mhm.
start but start. At
Yeah.
least make that first step and start.
Absolutely.
Yep.
And if you're not sure, I mean, honestly, a lot of times we're not sure how to start something.
Hmm.
And then we feel kind of embarrassed, like, well, I can't. You know what? You know, you're worth it. You are worth it. Your life is worth it. Reach out to somebody and if they have information that can help you move forward and what you want to do, then reach out to them and
Hmm.
get that information because it's important.
Yep. So, all this conversation today, it's powerful. And I think that's what this episode is really about. No matter how far gone things may feel, change is always possible. Now, Brenda, I really want to thank you so much for sharing a story with us today. Her
Absolutely.
honesty, strength, and everything that she's been through. It truly means a lot, not just to us, but to everyone that's
Yeah.
listening.
Absolutely. Stories like this are powerful because they remind us that change is possible. Even when it feels overwhelming, even when it feels like you're too far gone, you aren't.
You know, I think that's what really stood out, especially to me about this episode. It wasn't about losing weight. It was about how she rebuilt her life.
Yeah. And that starts internally, with how we see ourselves, how we treat ourselves, and the decisions that we make every day.
So if you're out there right now and something in this episode, if it resonated with you, say, hey, wait a minute, you know, I see myself in that a little bit. Okay, take the first step. It doesn't have to be perfect. We just mentioned about baby steps, but it just has to start.
Yeah. And remember, you don't have to do it alone. Help is always available for you, but you have to make the first step. Time to stop thinking about doing it and just start right now and get back control of your life.
And remember, folks, you can visit our website at yourlifematterspodcast.com to learn more about our show, contact us, and even request to be a guest. That's how we're honored to bring you Brenda's story this evening. So she contacted us through the website, and her story was so compelling because it was a story of hope and resilience.
If you found value in today's episode, we'd appreciate it if you'd like, subscribe, and here's a novel idea: share it with someone who may need to hear this message. You may know someone who's walking the same type of path that Brenda was walking and needs that nudge to begin taking back control of their life. It's as easy as sharing. And remember, if you need a place to begin, we're here for you. Waypost Counseling is here for you. Professionals in your area are here for you. So please
And the
don't
links
hesitate to reach out.
Yeah, and the links are in the description in case you're not sure. So until next time, God bless you all. And we hope you join us again next week for another great episode of the Your Life Matters Show podcast.
Take care.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of the Your Life Matters Show podcast. If today's conversation resonated with you, please like, subscribe, and share the episode so more people can be part of these important conversations around mental health. And remember, your life matters. We hope to see you again next week.